Welcome back. In this session, we will talk about communicative instruments for social mobilization. At the end of this session, you should be able to know when communicative instruments in solid waste management are required. Know typical objectives of communicative instruments in solid waste management. Know key steps when defining a communication campaign. Communicative or social instruments are applicable to situations in which government aims to raise people's awareness and influence, or indeed change people's attitudes and behavior, and where command and control, and economic instruments, are not sufficient, or even inappropriate. The aim of such instruments is most of the time to inform, educate, communicate, and involve people. Social instruments are based on interaction and communication among stakeholders, with or without the direct participation of the government. While there are many possibilities for intervention through social instruments, it is difficult to ensure that the chosen instruments will indeed be effective in achieving behavioral change. This is because people are triggered and motivated by very diverse factors and circumstances, including, for example, social status and aspirations, accepted norms of behavior, the broader societal context including the media, the belief that our actions matter, daily habit, and so on. In other words, what people do with their waste depends on a complex interplay of factors and circumstances, which is often within the sphere of influence of the waste management department. To capture people's attention effectively and raise their interest, it is essential for social instruments to make sense to citizens and speak to their realities, being their lives and surroundings. We can use the 4Es framework to explain this notion. Information alone is seldom sufficient to bring about the desired and lasting change in people's behavior. While information and instruction are necessary, it takes engaging people at a deeper level than intellectual understanding to prompt them into action. In addition to actions of reaching out towards the public, government agencies and organizations should lead by example and exemplify the desired behavior. For the credibility of any policy, it is very much important that the government encourages and gives the right signal towards a certain behavior. For example, governments can include requirements of design for sustainability into their public procurement rules and thereby directly deploy their purchasing power to encourage and support manufacturers, as well as importers, who adopt such approaches. Designing concrete and impactful activities requires specialist knowledge on social and behavioral science, which often lacks in the field of waste management, usually led by engineers and public health officers. To use effective communication instruments, it might be useful to think from a psychological perspective and use models, such as the RANAS model, which help understanding which factors we are targeting with what type of intervention, and make sure we don't leave aside an important element. For example, promoting an app such as Too Good To Go could be used to target the ability of people to reduce food waste by providing them with some options on where to find food about to perish. Or promoting eco-labels would help providing information about the type of product purchased, and which can give the citizen an idea of how suitable for recycling the product is, how waste reduction was considered in the manufacturing of a product, etc. That being said, not all the green labels are certified as eco-labels. Since a few years, a multitude of green labels not necessarily certified as eco-labels started to be used by producers as part of their marketing strategy to strengthen consumers' buying, leading to what we commonly name as greenwashing. Social mobilization for the transformation of civic behaviors relies on multiple other tools that go beyond direct, inspirational, or informative communication. Here are some best practices to set up mobilization strategies on waste, from the Handbook on Communication and Engagement for Solid Waste Management by ABRELP and the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. Stakeholder mapping, knowing the local players that already develop their work with solid waste management, such as NGOs, collectives, artists, communities, and associations in order to develop efforts and have an in-depth knowledge of cultural features of a certain community. Setting up allies with educators, waste pickers, business people, scholars, and all groups of people to have access to and knowledge of the target audience. Communicating through examples, which is a very effective way of using practice to instruct and raise awareness. Authorities should make an extra effort in ensuring that the public places and facilities, such as parks, schools, and hospitals, manage the waste in the same way that the authority is asking the citizens to do. Sharing problems, targets, and solutions. Because sharing current deficiencies, needs, and capacities, as well as long-term targets in a transparent way, can result in a better participation of the citizen in order to create the solution. And lastly, citizen protagonism. At the era of social media and proliferation of online profiles, it is important to recognize and amplify people's voices, let them express themselves, and take over the action to increase their engagement and adherence. More insights on key steps to make a successful communication campaign can be found in the handbook. We have reached the end of the session. Let's summarize what we have seen during the lesson. Common objectives of communicative instruments are to raise people's awareness and influence, or indeed change people's attitudes and behavior. For effective communication instruments, it is important to consider the 4 E's framework. Enable, make it easier. Engage, get people involved. Exemplify, lead by examples. Encourage, give the right signals. It might be useful to think from a psychological perspective and use psychological tools and models, such as our ANAS. Finally, we also went through key steps to make a successful communication campaign, such as making a multidisciplinary team, mapping the local players and their action models, creating participative evaluation mechanisms, etc. Last but not least, never forget to diversify your messages and communication strategies. Remember to read the additional resources and documents presented in the sessions. Thank you for listening. See you soon.